What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into Pro Wrestling Weekly right here on the Takedown on SI on YouTube. I'm Zach Hador, and that's Blake Lavelle. Level?
Zach, you can call me whatever you want, pal.
God
All
dang.
right.
See,
You have the luxury to call me anything you want. That is why we do this show. So I may call you a different name next week. We'll see.
yeah,
So
if a curse word comes out after or before my name, I probably deserved it. But good to talk to you, man. We got a lot to get to today. We're going to talk Blood and Guts for sure. AEW show this week on AEW Dynamite. We're going to talk John Cena as Intercontinental Champion. We've got news nuggets, a new trivia game for all of you out there. So lots and lots to get to. Thanks so much if you are joining us live today. We appreciate it. We will be here with Pro Wrestling Weekly right here, 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays, talking the news of the day, the news of the week, and all the big events in professional wrestling. Glad to have you here. If you're watching and you're not subscribed to the Takedown on SI on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any content that we do, any shows that we put up. We've got all sorts of stuff that goes up throughout the week, including interviews from the biggest WWE and AEW stars, a discussions show. We also have all of our pay-per-view and PLE previews right here as well. So subscribe, turn on your notifications so that you don't miss anything, because we got lots of stuff hitting all throughout the week. Also, if you wouldn't mind, just hit that little thumbs up button. It helps us grow this channel, helps us grow the show, and we appreciate any help you can in that regard as the show goes on today. I have the comments turned on. We've got super chats turned on. So jump on in the live chat. If you guys want to ask a question or make a comment or just rant and rave, you can definitely do that in the live chat. If you want to make sure your comment gets read on the air, drop us a super chat. Helps us out. It's like a little tip in the tip jar, and we do appreciate that in advance. All right, Blake, let's talk Blood and Guts, because I thought overall last night, while the build going into the Blood and Guts matches, I thought left a lot to be desired. Like, it kind of was like stale on the men's side with the babyface AEW Avengers against the Death Riders, and then on the women's side, it wasn't as stale, but it was just random. It had we had all these singles feuds going on, and we have all these tag feuds going on. Well, let's just dump it all into Blood and Guts because we want to have a Blood and Guts match. So that's kind of how I felt going into it. Coming out of it, I think the match is more than delivered and over-delivered in terms of what the build was set up for them to kind of stand on for the show. So overall, we'll get into the men's match and the women's match here in a second. But overall, your thoughts on Blood and Guts last night and whether it was a thumbs up or thumbs down night for AEW?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime, look, you're selling a stipulation when it comes to this kind of thing, and if you can execute the stipulation and you can give people what you're advertising, then I think it's a success, right? And they did that. In terms of you got blood, and hey, it didn't take long to get the blood part. Like, Sky Blue was just, busted open minutes into the show, and I'm just it's one of those things where you immediately knew what you were getting, and I thought, like you said, we had our bones to pick with the way the matches were set up. I think maybe more so me with the women's match, but in all honesty, I think I enjoyed the women's match maybe a little bit more in terms of I think one of the challenges you have here, anytime you do these matches, is that going in, they're going to be a certain length, right? And it's it's a much different thing, but it's sort of like the Iron Man stipulation. People used to be like, well, you're going 60 minutes, and so you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And so even with the War Games concept, again, this kind of thing, it's going to be a bit probably before this thing is done. And so you have to somehow find a way to keep people engaged in the middle. And usually in a Blood and Guts match, that just means how can you top the previous thing, right? And there were lots of instances of that, of trying to top what, the previous weapon that was used or the previous spot here or there. And so I thought the women did really well in that regard in terms of just being able to seemingly build off of the start, which again, they set the tone right away. This is not just going to be, hey, we're just going to fight inside a cage and that's that. No, we're going to go as far with this stipulation as we possibly can. It's the first time we're having this kind of match, and we're going to make sure we deliver on it. And I'll tell you the biggest thing I thought coming out of the women's match was that for all the hell that people want to give AEW for, certain story things and all that over the past couple of years and the Death Riders and all this other stuff, I think one of their successes has been building up the depth of the women's division. And I don't know that it will get enough credit, but if you really look at it, Zach, like you're watching that match and like you can see the time and somewhat, I guess, the care they put into pretty much every person in that match. And even though, again, the story to get there may have not been everyone's favorite, I think the individual focus on what they've done with each of these women and being able to tie them into different stories and kind of developing them in different ways, I feel like that kind of made this more of a success than it would have been had you just thrown some of these people in there and you're like, well, come on, these are just people that are added to the match, right? I think it helps that they've been built up to a point over the past year or so where it really felt like all these women in here play an important role right now in AEW's next evolution, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, and they're all on the show regularly too. I mean, in different capacities. They're not all in the title picture, and they're not all, getting 15 minutes of promo time out there, but they are present. And right now, in particular, they're present from the tag team tournament perspective. They're working on building that division out. I'm with you. I think this was the better match of the night, and I really like the men's match too. So that's saying something, and we'll get into that in a second. But the women's match I thought was creative enough in that they did some things that just the men in their match wouldn't be able to do, like sliding out of the cage the way Julia Hart did. Like that's something that is specific and only something that can happen in the women's Blood and Guts match. So I thought that was really cool. I also think that the tag team tournament got a little bit more intriguing because of this match. Like you had tag teams that are going to face each other or that might face each other in that tournament. Like just add a little extra sizzle to the drama between them, whether it's, good guys and good guys or bad guys and bad guys or, bad guys and good guys. I think there's more intrigue now because of how the match was put together. I'm trying to think of like the big spot of this match. And I don't think it had like the big violent main event.
Right.
Didn't
have anyone getting lit on fire in this match.
Nobody was literally on fire rolling around on the ground. But they had a lot of little stuff. And I think that the women sold that little stuff really effectively. And that made up for the lack of a, huge stunt. I also think that with 2 Blood and Guts matches on the same show, 2 of those matches within a 2.5 hour period, I think it was smart to like design this match differently than the other one in terms of a finish and in terms of having that big spot. Like this finish was a lot more emotional. It was like, you're torturing my tag team partner. I gotta give it up. Whereas the other match was like, well, we're just going to like do like 5 table spots and we're going to jump off stuff and we're going to put fire on tables and fall through that. Like, I think it was a really like diverse mix as well from the women's side to the men's side. Anything else you want to say or mention about the women's match?
No, I thought that was a great point though. And that was something I kind of had in my notes was just the challenge of doing 2 of these matches. Right. And again, we can tie in the parallels. So people say the same thing if you have 2 Royal Rumble matches, 2 War Games matches. Like you have to somehow make them feel different. And I think that's a good point is that they did make these feel a little bit different. And so for me, it was, too, I think it's anytime you have these matches, it's like the odd couple type thing where when you see someone who you're like, it's wild to see that person in this match. And I think that's where like seeing a Mercedes Moné with the current character that she has, right? And she's just the person who's just collecting belts and maybe not wanting to get her hands dirty and all this other stuff. And then she has to be put in the War Game setting where it's just violence and chaos everywhere. Like, I think that kind of stuff helps these matches too. And not to say she hasn't been in those kind of matches before. I think it's just the setting with where she's at right now. And, so I think all of those things kind of to me built into just the visual and just the overall effect for the women's match. And so, yeah. And by the way, I'm going to keep saying this, but like Marina Shafir to me is still someone who I think just shines in any setting she's put in. And I know she's not going to be the most talkative person on the
She doesn't need
roster,
to be.
and she doesn't need to be, right. And I think they've put her in a really good position, and she's another one that I think over the past year or so, like the Death Riders thing or not, and we'll transition to that. Like, I just think they have done such a good job with kind of the way they presented her, and obviously we'll see how it looks moving forward with the tag team tournament and such. So
I'm with you on Marina Shafir. So Sean Palikta, who's joined us in the chat. Hello, Sean. Thanks for being here. Also, Atlas Fear's in there and some others. Great to have you guys here. Thank you. Sean says here, what's up, Blake and Zach? The blood and guts stuff just doesn't do it for me, but I guess it was fine for what it was. The men's match overall was better, but at least Marina Shafir had a really good showing. I think that's a note that most people, thanks, Sean, that most people are making. I thought when she entered the match, it added in like an intensity level, which wasn't there prior. And you're right. She's not going to talk very much. I don't even know, Blake, if she's going to be able to have like, regular like TV matches, right? Like, like her aura, I don't know if it's designed for that, but man, you take her and you put her in a match like this, and it immediately goes to 0 to 100 in terms of intensity. I thought she had across both matches maybe the best night out of anybody that stepped inside Blood and Guts.
Yep, agreed.
Let's see. Let's go to some more chats here. Atmosphere says both matches were car crashes, spot-filled violence, but there wasn't anything super dangerous. Hey, man, some dude like flew off the top of a stage and threw some tables that were on fire. I think that's pretty dangerous. God dang.
Hey, it's Darby. I mean, at this point, it's like, it's just like, it's almost a given. And I don't know. Like, and I will back up something that Sean said, and this is probably not a secret, but like, this isn't my kind of thing either. Like, these aren't my favorite matches. Like, sure. I'll just be honest. Like, they're not. But yet, again, it's what the stipulation is. And so I go into it with an open mind of like, okay, I know what to expect here, right? I'm not expecting a WWE War Games match. I'm expecting blood and guts. Like, I'm expecting something different. And I think that's, like you said, it's for the men's match. I mean, and you mentioned like the creativity of having Julia Hart and using the cage as part of that. Like, I thought, and I know, Zach, the old school part of me is going to be like, when you have these kind of cage matches, just keep people in there. Don't let them get outside. But I thought, again, it was very creative the way they did in the women's match. Maybe not so much so in the men's match. I think it just kind of became, well, hey, we're just going to let these guys do whatever they want. And of course, by adding Mark Briscoe in the way they did, I get it. Like, you were able to, set it up that way. But yeah, again, to me, the men's match was good too. I think it was one that was certainly built up for the big sort of crescendo, right? Versus I think the women's match where, like we said, maybe it was just structured a little bit differently, but they definitely built the men's match up to, it may take a little while to get there, but once we get you to the finish, it's gonna be worth it. So
yeah, it was a slow starter for sure. And I don't know. Sometimes that can be good for a match like this because you don't want to just play all your big cards like at the beginning when as you said earlier, like it has to go at least 20 minutes or at least 25 minutes or thereabouts to get everybody in. And longer than that, probably. Math is not my strong suit today, but I think it's probably longer than that.
Yeah.
Regardless, though, you gotta pace yourself. You can't do the, falling off a stage through two tables lit on fire spot 2 minutes in. You have to like take a while to paint that picture. And I thought they did. The Mark Briscoe spot, as that was all going on, I was rolling my eyes a little bit because I'm just like, well, surely, like, we know he's going to come out,
Yeah.
We know that. We've seen this out before. It's just a mechanism to get the cage door open once the match has started. And so I don't know. I kind of rolled my eyes at that. At the same time, though, I thought it was timed well, where they gave it enough juice without him in the match that there were points where I'm like, well, maybe Mark Briscoe, maybe he's really not going to come out, even though you think you're pretty sure that he did. So did that spot furrow your brow at all, or were you good with it?
Well, and that was my thinking. Like I'm just like, okay, clearly they're constructing this to where you've got to get the door open somehow, and this is the way to do it. And I think
Yeah.
again, like that's kind of the contrived type stuff that the 80s wrestling fan in me is going to hate, but like I
Mm-hmm.
just understand that that's just how it works right now, and like
Yeah.
there are just not every little thing is not always going to be the perfect way to do it. And again though, it's one where if you really think about it, right, it's like, was the match better because they were able to get out of the cage? I would say probably so. Like,
Yeah.
if you really think about it, because you're like, the Darby thing, you're able to do that. And it's like that. These are the kind of matches where, like, remember, like, am I going to come back and be like, oh, yeah, I remember that thing that happened 4 minutes into the match? Absolutely not. I'm going to
Right.
remember what happened at the end, right? I'm going to remember the way this thing finished and anything that was notable at the end, because I think that can also be a positive and negative, where it's like, you have to do so much in these matches, especially given, like, I think what AEW has set as sort of the precedent for hardcore type matches, to where it's like eventually when you drop someone on glass after you do it the 8th time, I'm like, I just, all right. Like, it's not going to have that same kind of thing that's burned into my mind the way that, well, I guess, pun intended, unfortunately, Darby being burned, being thrown off
Right.
onto the fire is going to. And so I think that's the thing you probably wrestle with a little bit. If you're just a fan and you're thinking, okay, obviously the logic stuff has to play into it, but at the same time, like, for me, like I said, it probably makes the match more memorable by doing it that way, even if, it doesn't stick to your traditional professional wrestling route, I guess.
Let's talk about the big spot, because I just thought it was a hell of a spot. And I'm not that kind of like pro wrestling fan either, where I'm like, oh, give me fire, give me more
Right.
spikes and blood or whatever. Like, however, to your point, you're selling blood and guts here. So if this match doesn't have something like that, I think it kind of falls on deaf ears a little bit. This one, man, was impressive. So if you didn't see it, it's up on AEW social, so you can go check it out right now. But Gabe Kidd gets involved in the match, and he kind of pulls Darby out of kind of the fight that's happening near the cage, and they brawl like up the entrance ramp. Eventually, Pac kind of goes that way too, and Pac and Darby Allin end up fighting on the top of like the staging, if you will, like the not the tip top of like the big screen, but like a platform below that. And on the outside, Gabe Kidd puts 2 tables together, soaks them in lighter fluid, and lights the table on fire. And then, like, what surprised me about the spot was Pac lifted Darby up to like in a press position. And so I'm like, well, surely, okay, they're going to do something where he comes down and like falls. And so he can control the fall a little better. But no, Pac just dumps him off through the table to the floor on fire. He rolls off the table. The dude is still on fire a little bit. And the referee kind of just stands there and doesn't do anything. I thought this was just a great spot for this match. I thought it kind of reignited the match in terms of momentum. Like, I think that you had people kind of playing along with the match before, but this, I think people were like, damn, we really want to see the babyfaces win now. Like, that's crazy that happened. Sympathy on the babyfaces. Darby's out. How are they gonna overcome? And I think the rest of the match was kind of built around capitalizing on the momentum of that spot. So I don't think they should do something like this in AEW for 5 more years. Like, they should keep that kind of spot special for matches like this, for moments like this, because it can really work in certain scenarios. And I thought it did here, but you don't want to overdo it with this kind of thing. So I thought that was insane. Darby, what are you doing, man? But boy, it sure helped.
My biggest fear, I'm not going to lie to you, and I wrote this in my notes, I said, please tell me he's not coming back out. Like, please tell me that's it. Like, don't let him come back out after this, because that was honestly my first fear. It was like, oh man, don't do this. Don't have him come out after being set on fire and somehow he wins the match or something. Like, you just cannot come back from something like that. So, but I think you're right. If you go back and watch it, and I think it's like you could tell the crowd it's buzzed even more after that, right? The
Yeah.
buzzing just goes up, and you can feel like that anticipation, like you said, of where it's like, okay, these damn heels have just set this guy on fire. We have to get behind that. Like somehow, this group has to find a way to win. They have to do it, and that's great. Like that is perfect kind of storytelling for the finish. And I thought that's why, again, if you're just looking at the way the match is finished, I thought this one was very well done because you had it set up in a logical way where you got the fans more invested after, yes, a guy gets set on fire. We don't say that a lot, but
That's
that's
a real
again
sentence. You said that.
what you
That happened.
expected in this one. You didn't get it in the Darby and Mox match, so you knew you were going to get it at some point, and this was the time to do it. Sean brings up Gabe Kidd has just become like the guy. Just he's like the Joe Henry, Zach of of
He's like a
AEW.
vicious, demented Joe Hendry. I love it.
It's got to be the guy just pops up out of nowhere, and he just comes out of nowhere at times. So yeah, he pops up, and all of a sudden he's there to facilitate a guy getting set on fire. So yeah, but I'm in agreement with you. I thought just the way they did it, it was executed very well. I'm not going to advocate for Darby just being set on fire every show, but that's not what it is. The guy he takes a beating. We know that. That's Darby, and I mean, at this point, if you're complaining about that, like you don't really know what you have to stand on because that's just kind of what you expect from this guy, and so far, it's gotten him to still be a professional wrestler, and hopefully it stays that way for many years to come.
Yeah, for sure. But it sure does. I mean, and that wasn't like the only big bump he took. Like when he got press slammed from one ring to the other, I was like, oh, like, if you felt the wrestling ring before, like that hurts just kind of just like the way he fell. I was like, oh, Darby. And then later he's like, hold my beer. I'm doing this. I'm doing this instead. The finish I thought was very interesting. Not necessarily that Jon Moxley lost, because clearly AEW is telling that story. They're telling the story of Moxley's in a funk right now. He's quitting and I quit matches. He's tapping out. He's losing. But Kyle O'Reilly is the guy to do it. Kyle O'Reilly, the little mid-card guy in the conglomeration. What did you make of that? Is that just avenue to travel down for Moxley and that story and whatever's going to happen with him and the Death Riders? Or is this an actual, nod for Kyle O'Reilly?
It's tough because, again, like Kyle O'Reilly, have appreciated what he's done, but I do think there is a point where it's like sometimes, and I feel like this is an AEW thing more so than where I see it elsewhere, where it's you can tell there is a clear plan to like reheat a guy up, but I think it's like we can't forget though what's happened before that.
Right.
And I feel like with him, it's just like I can't just completely forget that before this thing that kind of felt like it just came out of nowhere with Moxley, right? All of a sudden, it's like these series of matches, and that's the final story here. I think that's what I'm wrestling with, is like they clearly set it up this way. Like they knew where they were headed weeks ago with this, or they wouldn't have kind of structured things probably the way they did with their previous matches. But like it is one where you can say, all right, hey, they at least told the story to the end. To this chapter, I guess you could say. I don't know if it's the end, and now they're gonna go through with it. But I mean, and Sean saying like what 1 in 67 on TV. I mean, it's like
1 in 67 on TV. God dang.
I just think that's where it's sort of like one of those where, and look, that could be whatever 1 in 10, and it's still a very glaring thing. And I think that's where I'm curious. So there is at least some curiosity. Like, where do they go now? Because if you are going to make that the finish, Kyle O'Reilly is, well, other than Darby, like he's the guy coming out of this where you're like, he's the person on your mind the most. Yeah. And do I think that means they're going to build him into the next challenger for the world title? I don't see it. But and look, I know Sean wasn't serious, but it does feel like that, right? Where it's like he hasn't won many matches. Like he's been the guy that's sort of just been slotted as the guy that gets beat by the top guys. And I feel like once you get slotted there, it's hard to get out. And even if you win a match like this, where it's kind of a stipulation match, it's not, a one-on-one type thing. And again, the story makes sense for what they've been telling the past several weeks, but I don't know. Like, it's kind of going to be interesting to see what they do with him moving forward. But the good thing is, Zach, are you ready for it? They got plenty of titles to go around. So if they want to give this man a title shot, it doesn't have to be the world title. So
someone's got to be the national champion, right? I mean,
maybe Kyle O'Reilly.
I think, I don't see this because of the 167 record or whatever it is. I don't think that it's necessarily even a push for Kyle O'Reilly. Like if you're Kyle O'Reilly, I think you probably got backstage like hey, you're gonna win this match, but really, like, it's because we want to further we want it to seem so shocking that Jon Moxley would lose to somebody like you who never wins. That's the story. And I wonder if this is going to be an avenue to finally break up the Death Riders. Like, it's a pretty cold fashion at this point. I think I've been higher on it than most people in our space, I think, because I think it helped AEW just kind of reorganize as like a company. You got this big bad heel faction at top. You've got everybody else chasing them. You build to a huge title change on a huge show. I think that helped kind of right the ship after kind of a messy end to 2024. Yeah. But now you've beaten these guys 3 times. You've beaten them at All In, and you've taken the title away. Darby's made Jon Moxley say I quit, and now you've beaten that team in Blood and Guts. It's like they just don't have the same cachet as they used to. And so I think this is like the beginning of the end for them. Like, I think you might see Daniel Garcia and Claudio and all those guys like Jon Moxley, what's going on? And maybe they turn on him. The problem AEW has is like I don't see like a major singles match there for Moxley to have. It's all kind of, I think we brought this a little bit up last week. It's just kind of mid-card blah that they kind of have to jump through in order to get Moxley to do something else.
Yeah, I think, and that's one of the things that I'm curious about, because I hope this isn't like the Hurt Syndicate and the Demand, where this is something that just goes on and on and on. But I feel like we, for many people, it kind of got there with the Death Riders. And like you said, I feel like for most people, it's run its course. And I do think that's still one of the things that I think AEW can certainly improve on. Is just like, it almost feels like so many things have to be these long stories, when I think sometimes it's okay just to go from one cycle to the next and then just move on to the next chapter. And, I just feel like that's kind of, I don't want to say a habit, but it feels like it's that way with a lot of stuff. And I know you want to tie in the history and, the backstory and all that throughout all this, but I feel like it is one where it's like, all right, find a way to keep evolving these stories a little bit. Whereas I think with the Death Riders right now, it's just like, if you're looking at Claudio or you're looking at Wheeler Yuta or Daniel Garcia, yes, they've had like notable parts in the story, even Pac, but it's like, are they really at a level where you're just thinking, man, that's your, that's the next guy that's going to break out, and all of a sudden, and people are like, well, when they turn on Moxley, what if they do? I mean, I don't know that that's, I mean, in all honesty, Zach, I don't know that that's the best thing, because who's the leader, right? And I don't know that there's anyone in that group that's going to all of a sudden be seen as the leader, even if, they present themselves as the guy, right? I'm not sure about that.
You don't have a Braun Breaker waiting in the wings to like take over the vision when the Death Riders thing inevitably ends. You just, you don't have that guy. It's not like Kyle Fletcher is sitting there or Konosuke Takeshita is sitting there. Like, the people that Moxley surrounded himself are legit, mid-card guys that I don't think people really give a ton of credibility to. Atlasphere says here, Moxley's due for a vacation for a while now. Him getting kicked out of the Death Riders and disappearing for a while would be welcome. That's another way that you could do it. I mean, at some point, you have to have Moxley come back and just destroy the Death Riders. And maybe that's what he does. Maybe he leaves and then he comes back, quick victory, and then on to something else. So you could definitely do that. But yeah, I mean, when you think about Moxley and AEW, I mean, he's been in it and around it and a major focus of it for the better part of 6 years at this point. I mean, really, since the company got rolling, he's been involved at the highest level almost the entire time, except for, a few moments here and there. So, even with the best talents, they can get stale. And I think Moxley's kind of headed for that point too. Quick break. I don't think he needs to be off TV for a year or anything like that, but like just a quick little break to reset and make the heart grow fonder for his return.
No one hates vacations more than Jon Moxley. That guy's not going anywhere for an extended amount of time. So
yeah, he can't stab anybody in the head when he's on vacation. So he can only do that at work.
Legally, that is not something he can do. I can tell you that. So
it is frowned upon, guys. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly, live right here in the Takedown on SI YouTube channel. We're live with this show every single week, 12 Eastern on Thursdays. So make an appointment viewing, turn on the notifications if you're watching live now. It'd be a big help if you could just like the video. It certainly helps us grow and helps us reach some new eyes. So thank you in advance for that. If you have any questions that you want us to get to or you want us to discuss or debate, drop them in the chat and we'll make sure to get to those. But let's talk WWE for a minute, and then we'll hit some news highlights from the week. John Cena, a big night in Boston on Monday Night Raw. The whole show was essentially built on his return to Boston and his final Boston appearance. And not only does he appear, but he wrestles. He beats Dominic Mysterio for the Intercontinental Championship. He becomes a Grand Slam champion. Also on the show, you had the Last Time Is Now tournament kick off with Rusev and Sheamus both advancing out of the first round and further into that tournament to crown John Cena's final opponent. So a lot of the company right now focused on John Cena. I ask you, is this IC championship thing worth it? Is it worth it at this point? Should John Cena be WWE Intercontinental Champion?
It's going to sound like a cop-out answer, but I'm like, it all depends on what they do next. Because I'm like, so let me just play out this scenario, okay? Let's say Gunther wins and Cena faces Gunther for the Intercontinental title at Saturday night's main event. I just don't like having that as the stipulation of having that title attached to that match when I think it. I mean, you can say, well, it's Gunther coming back to reestablish the IC title. It's John Cena's. It's John Cena's final match. I don't need that. So I am kind of wondering at this point, and that's where like it's a very cloudy picture, and I know people seem to be, being like, all right, well, Cena's going to join War Games. Is he? I think he may, but I don't know that for sure because I can see people saying, well, they're going to do Dominic and Rey in San Diego, which again would make total sense. I also believe you could do the rematch and have Dominic beat Cena at Survivor Series in San Diego, and that would make sense too. So I think they've got a couple directions they can go here, because I'd also heard some people debating like, well, who does Cena face at Survivor Series if he's not in War Games and he's not facing Dominic? And I'm like, I don't think there's anyone. I think those are your only two options. Like, you'd have to go very quick in heating something up, and I just don't like that idea. I think you have a ready-made rematch. Dominic's pissed. Triple H is out here, making matches. He's not the official general manager or whatever. Like, Dominic can come up with some kind of loophole to get a rematch. Or you just go with the All-Star team, which is what they've seemingly been teasing, where it's Cody, Punk, Jay, Roman, and Cena, which, again, the spectacle of that, who cares about the undercard? I mean, in all honesty, who cares about the other matches? Like, that's going to sell itself, and you give Cena a chance to, be in War Games. And so I can see that they have a couple good options here, but I don't like the idea of past Survivor Series Cena being the Intercontinental Champion. I'll say that.
I'm with you. I think it was a cool. Sometimes in wrestling, like, you have to put on pro wrestling events in WWE's case multiple times a week, every single week for 52 weeks of year for 50 odd years. Like, I think it's okay to recognize the moment that you have. It's a moment in time that you're not going to have again, and like lean into that. And I kind of think that that's what WWE's strategy was here. It's like, we're in Boston. It's Cena's hometown. Their crowd's going to be going crazy. Like, we can do a big kind of title change to get that big pop and to make this like a memorable night on Raw. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to have just cool stuff happen on your show like that. With that being said, John Cena as Intercontinental Champion, like going into this final match, I think is a mistake. I'm with you on that. Like, this is, to me, if it's sold right and WWE puts the right kind of build behind it, like retiring John Cena is bigger than the IC title. Like, it's more, I would compare it more to, like, it's not exactly the same, but it's more of a streak type thing at WrestleMania than it is, just like a regular old retirement match. I mean, I think they've turned this retirement tour into something so big that now whoever is standing across the ring from him in that last match, I think that's going to matter. I think it's going to matter more than the IC title. Like, the IC title would be a background prop in that, and I don't think you want that. So I am with you. I think there's a chance that he could lose it as early as this Monday, at Madison Square Garden. I mean, you could run that match back and have anybody interfere. You could even have, if you want to get Cena into War Games, you can have Braun Breaker, the Vision, get involved in something.
Have Brock come out and just destroy Cena again. And
there you go. Yeah, there you go.
There you
exactly.
go.
Yeah, have Brock come out. Toss him in War Games too, maybe. Like make it like a really big star-studded match. So there are ways that you can do this, but I looked at that moment and I was kind of, in the moment being like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty sweet. That's a cool moment on TV. But, Madison Square Garden's right around the corner. I would not be surprised if he lost the title by this time next week.
Yeah, I think he's going to wrestle on Monday. And I think it's like, I am of the belief, I think it needs to be Dom just for the story, because I think it's an easy one to tell. And then you can go to Dominic and Ray at Survivor Series.
Right.
Because look, that's one of those, you're probably never going to have a chance to do that again. Stadium show in San Diego, these two, like, I just think it's too perfect to not go to that.
You gotta go. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, and so I feel like that's where we're headed. Now, again, will the Intercontinental title mean a lot in that match? Probably not. Like, I would fully expect Dominic's going to win, I would believe. And so it's kind of one of those where I just feel like you said it, and I think, honestly, you could say, like, that's one of the things that's so different. I mean, what are the knocks for people? It's just like WWE has become boring. And it's like, when you get to that, and especially we're talking SmackDown here, let's call it what it is. Like, SmackDown is a show in these serious,
rough grind, man.
in serious improvements. And look, let's not forget, I think they're going to go back to 3 hours. I think they're going to keep alternating. And if they go back to 3 hours with this current SmackDown, Zach, I don't know how I'm going to watch it each week. It's rough.
Tough.
And so if you're looking at it from that standpoint, like, I feel like they need to have more of these moments like this where you capitalize, you do the unpredictable type stuff. You need more stuff that I think, just as it was back in the day. Like, and I'm not saying we go back to the Attitude Era, okay? I know a lot of people say that. I'm not saying that. But do stuff that's set up in segment one and pays off and like match-wise. Like, you don't have to announce everything ahead of time. Like, just come into the show, do something big, just the way they did here, and have that be the payoff. Get the payoff that night, not 3 weeks later, not 2 months later. Like, just have something that can give you a payoff from start to finish. And, and I think that's where, like, some of the pushback on Triple H, especially, I think maybe this was more so a couple of years ago, but you don't need every title reign to be 500 and something days, right? It's not, this is an era where it's just, fans don't have that kind of patience. Like, you need to come up with stuff to where you have a little bit more of, frequent moving of the titles that keeps things interesting, keeps it fresh. And so I am perfectly fine with Cena beating Dominic in Boston, but I'm also of the belief, as you said, how many, in all honesty, what is the percentage of WWE fans out there that care about a Grand Slam championship? Right? I mean, it's a very low percentage.
Minimal.
And it's just like, so Cena winning, great moment, cool, all that, but it ultimately, to a large portion of the fan base does not change their opinion whatsoever on John Cena. He's still John Cena. Had he not won the Intercontinental title, I don't think there's many people who would have cared. And so I think you get it back to Dom as quickly as you can, and maybe that's next week. And like we said, I think that's where if you're setting up the All-Star group, I think you have Brock join because it makes sense. And if you're going to add a fifth, I'm still the belief, Zach, that I think Drew McIntyre is going to find his way into this thing. I know I've seen all the conflicting reports out there, but otherwise, I don't know what they're doing on SmackDown with Drew if he's not in this match. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Oh, I think he's got to be in the match. I mean, now that Cody's in it, it makes perfect sense for him to be in it. It makes sense for Brock to be in it. And I think, like, again, if Cena just joined, I think you could make that make sense, right? You've got Punk, you've got Jay, you've got Cody. You could have them just go to Cena and like, hey, we need you.
Yeah.
But you could also get that IC title off of him and at the same time build a reason for him to want to be in inside War Games. And I think that's why, Sean, you're going to get your wish. Sean says, Dom's going to win it back. I don't mind him cheating, but I'm over all the ref bumps and them making him look so freaking stupid. I mean, Dom, let's talk about Dom really quick. Look, I don't know what the ceiling is for him. I don't know that he's a guy that I see on the WrestleMania marquee at this point. Like, I don't know. Maybe, never say never. I think in my mind, if you were to ask me to put a bunch of money on it, I'd say that he lands at best somewhere in the Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens zone of like being a regular guy, being a guy that's paid well, being a guy that has a long tenure with the career, but, not the guy. At the same time, and watching him opposite John Cena on Monday night, I thought he was tremendous. It's the way that he was chewing his gum and the way that he was like just looking at Cena and the open like disrespect. You just wanted to smack the grin off his face. I thought he was like, when you're in there with John Cena sucks a lot of the oxygen out. I mean, ask Roman Reigns, ask The Rock, ask, CM Punk, ask a lot of people that Cena's been in the ring with mic-wise. And I thought Dom, stood his ground and looked like he belonged there. He was excellent.
Yeah. I've admittedly, I've been hot and cold on Dom, and I think the booking plays a part in that, where it's like, again, some of the stuff I think can become repetitive. And I mean, when was that? He had the AJ Styles stuff. Like I was like, I really would like to see AJ Styles win the title from him because I just feel like I needed something different at that point. But like the way they did it and what they did afterwards, like I'm like, okay, not the worst idea to have Dominic keep it. And yes, like they were all in on him. And they still are, and I think the AAA thing plays a role in that too, just because, again, the star level that he's gotten to. But, yeah, like there's no denying that. And we talk about, like, how many people on the roster could have done that the other night and done it as effectively, right? And I feel like there's not many people who could have been in that role that's not named, Roman Reigns and CM Punk and all that, the guys you mentioned. So I think that's why they're clearly high on him, is they feel confident that he can handle those kind of situations. And after that, and depending on what they do on Monday, I think it's only going to make their confidence even higher. And like you said, I don't know that I ever see Dominic. Will he ever win the world championship? Probably, just because it's like, it'll happen. Even if it's just sort of a fluke run or whatever, or maybe just rises to the level of you get that babyface turn with Liv or something and they're both just white hot and you just want to be like, all right, there's nothing wrong with giving him the world championship or something. But I think the way it's structured now, like it will only get him so far. Maybe, I think, again, based on maybe the shenanigans and all that stuff around it. So, but no denying that he was fantastic, and I would expect the same if they run it back on Monday. So,
Dom's going to be an interesting guy to watch the next 10 years because I remember like when he was like wrestling his first match in the Thunderdome in front of nobody, I was like, oh man, like, whew, this is rough. This is a rough go. And now he, just leaps and bounds better from from where he was. Atmosphere says the only person who cares about being a Grand Slam champion is The Miz.
That's right.
That should tell you something about what the Grand Slam champion means. That's the biggest tell that you need, Atmosphere. Thanks, man. All right, let's get to some news and nuggets from the week and break down some of the stuff that's happened just in general across pro wrestling. Man, we had a situation in AEW last weekend. Goodness gracious, Nixon Newell, formerly known as Knox, something Knox.
Tegan Knox.
Right, Tegan Knox in WWE, and Miranda Elise were booked for a match on Collision and reportedly walked out when they felt like they weren't being used properly and they were asked to do a job and they were like, you know what, we're not going to do this job. Like, we're out of here. Now, since that happened, we've heard from them and they've said that, hey, we're on good terms and we, no disrespect. And it's just, that's what we felt like we needed to do for us at that minute. Man, when I heard this news, I was like, dude, hey, Tegan Knox, I think, was a really good prospect for WWE. And then she got injured all those times. And it's unfortunate, like, what happened. Elise, it's like, okay, who's that? Like, at least that was my reaction. And it's like, you guys don't have the respect, the notoriety, the credibility to be throwing your weight around like that. So I'm always up for pro wrestlers standing up for themselves and trying to get pushes for themselves and trying to get more money. Like, that's all part of what it is to be a pro wrestler. But it's also part of being a pro wrestler when you recognize your spot within the ecosystem that you're in and do the job that's asked for you. So I was pretty surprised to hear that these guys, these two women of all people, were the ones to kind of pull this, because I think it makes them look really, really bad. And it won't matter in the long term because AEW is a lot bigger than them and they're probably not going to get booked in that company again. But I still thought it was just like a bad look. And I think AEW actually played it well by just saying, okay, you don't do the job, great. We'll see you later, and someone else will come in and do it.
Yeah, I mean, you have every right to stand up for yourself, but you also have to understand there are going to be consequences. And I don't think they're ever going to work for AEW again.
No.
If you're even thinking about your potential for going to WWE, well, what do you think they're going to look at that as? A company that is much more like
you're not
aggressive when it comes to doing stuff like that. If you do that, like, adios, right? Yep. I mean, it's different, but like the Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, Naomi thing, how long did it take for that to clear up, right? And who knows? I mean, it's like, give Naomi credit. Like, both of them, right? Both of them went out, reinvented themselves after that, and they're both better for it now. But that's a different situation than this. They had already been well established in their roles, and I think, again, like you said, it's sort of I have no issue with wrestlers who quite often, again, as independent contractors, like, it's a rough spot to be in for a lot of people. But you just have to understand that there's still going to be, and I think I'll say it this way, one of the best opinions I thought I saw on this was like, you have to understand it's not just about your actions and how they affect you, but it's like, what was it? Someone pointed out, think about how many people in the locker room that have wrestled for AEW, like back in the day on Dark or Dark Elevation, and maybe get 2 minutes on Collision. They love those 2 or 3 minutes on Collision. They would love it. I mean, and I'm going to throw this one. How many people in WWE right now would love 2 or 3 minutes just to get themselves on television? Because they don't have house shows as much as they used to. They don't have the opportunity to have. And so that, I think, is the one thing in terms of the whole context of this. Yes, you can stand up for yourself. Yes, you can be pissed off about how you think you should have this or that, but it's not something that just affects you. It's something that affects a lot of people and the way they're going to perceive you. And when you're out there looking for work in this particular field, that can be the consequence that winds up hurting the most.
And it's also just like you know, you got to know your place. Like in any industry, in any company, right? You got to know your place. And like the person that we're going to talk about next, he has the freedom to say a little bit more than maybe in this case that he would want to say. But I mean, he like no one's going to question that because he is who he is. And he has the spot that he has, and he's done what he's done. And like these two women, while very talented, just haven't. And it's like you got to read the room better than that. So hopefully they learn something. Hey, maybe Tegan Knox becomes a next huge star, in which case it'll be water under the bridge. But for now, she's gonna have a rough time, getting back into the big leagues. Speaking of the big leagues, Chris Jericho opened his mouth this week and I don't know, threw a right hook, if you will, at AEW because he called TNA the second biggest company in the United States because of the numbers that Bound for Glory did. So he was talking about Bound for Glory. He was talking about the success that event had. And this is on his podcast, called TNA the second biggest company in the world. Now, Blake, does that sound like somebody that's working for AEW?
Yeah. Everyone should already go ahead and in perfect Chris Jericho fashion, have your countdown timers set.
Yes.
Because when the Royal Rumble gets here, at number 30, I'm going to call it right now, Chris Jericho is going to come out in Saudi Arabia, and he is going to be the number 30 entrant in the Men's Royal Rumble match. And that place is going to come unglued.
You heard it here
first.
First.
I think that's where we're headed here. We're a couple months away from it happening. Still got a bit, but there is not a single scenario. And I know I've seen the reports out there about how both companies are going to make big offers once he's, free to do so. There's only one company that's going to win that war, and it's going to be a WWE, because I think if you're Jericho, the way things have gone the past couple of years, this is what you do. Like, you now go back to the place where you can reinvent yourself one more time, probably before you retire, and you're coming home, you're going to get your Hall of Fame induction, you're going to get a big spot in the Rumble, you'll get a big featured match on WrestleMania next year, and off into the sunset you go. You'll have a role in WWE for years to come, even after you're in ring. Sorry, it's over in AEW. Jericho's headed to WWE. You heard it here first.
You heard it here first, and I mean, with that comment, I don't think Chris Jericho wants there to be much as a surprise to that.
No.
When you say that, and you were working for AEW, which really truly is the second biggest company in the United States, you're not hiding kind of what your plan is or what your plan might be. Like, that's clear. You might as well wear like a big necklace around your neck that says "I'm going to WWE soon," because that's what it was to me. And a bold move for Chris Jericho, but that guy is smart about how he plays the game backstage. So, if you're him, you're not worried because you know that you have a big WWE payday in the background.
Yeah.
All right. Last night on Dynamite, Adam Page and Samoa Joe gets a stipulation. We talked about this last week, whether or not we thought it would get one or not. They will be inside of a steel cage at Full Gear for the AEW Men's World Championship. Blake, what do you think of this? What do you think of this stipulation, how they got there, and how the match can be at Full Gear?
I mean, the match will be great. I don't have any doubt. The only thing I didn't like, and maybe this is just me reading too much into it, I didn't like the fact that whenever Hangman made the challenge, Joe basically looked like he was terrified. And I'm like, I've never seen that. If anything, I think this should be exactly what Joe wants. Now, I think that was kind of one of the things that I felt like it was a little bit off. And people can say, well, they've kind of built it up that way, that Joe's got the, back of Shibata and Powerhouse Hobbs, and maybe he's settled into that role. But I don't know if I like that. I think like Joe one-on-one with Hangman in a cage should be exactly what Joe thinks is the path that's going to get him to being the champion. because he feels like he is better, and he's said that, and he's talked about how he's just, different than Hangman is. And so I didn't like the reaction from him. And again, that's probably me just reading into it too much. But nonetheless, kind of like we said earlier, if you're gonna, and I don't necessarily mean dragging things out in a bad way here, because I think what they've done has been fine. But if you're gonna do it again, you've got to give it something extra. Now, I guess the question is, you're gonna make this a cage match after just doing 2 blood and guts matches inside cages, and that may be a little bit too much for some people, because again, it's like, how are you going to top it? Are you going to get outside the cage? Because if not, it's like, you're limited. And so it's going to be a great match. No, there's no question. We never doubt that with AEW, but not surprised they added the stipulation. But in all honesty, I'm not surprised. I think you probably had to add something extra. There probably are other ideas that I could have liked better, but again, I think it'll still deliver, and I'm not expecting a title change, so maybe that's why I'm just like, my interest is not as high.
Well, and I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think it's the right thing to do. I mean, you can't have them just do a regular match at this point. You've been there, you've done that. The feud has intensified since Wrestle Dream with the Falls Count Anywhere yesterday, and just the beatings that Joe's given Paige. Like, he should want, Joe in a cage at this point. I think they've built up to that. But to your point with the blood and guts, yeah, I would have a different cage match. I would figure out a way to just keep it in the cage. Last night you had Adam Page on the mic go, "Hey, keep your guys out of this. Keep everybody out of this. Just me, just you, steel cage, world title." Deliver that. Deliver that. You're not going to get a huge high spot from Samoa Joe, in a cage match.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to happen. But I think you could trot out something and design a match that's violent and that uses the cage like the way it's supposed to be used, to keep people in. And I think if they take that angle on it, I think it's going to be a really good match. But it has the same issue that the first match had, which is, I just don't think anybody really buys that Samoa Joe could win this. So they have some work to do as far as that goes. So they have some work to do.
Agreed.
All right, and then last news nugget this morning: Elimination Chamber announced for Chicago in the United Center. So they're stepping up a bit in terms of the buildings that they're running. And I'm from Chicago. The United Center is like 20 minutes that way. So good for me. It's on the end of February, so February 28th. You got Punk on the poster. You've got Cody on the poster. You got all the main WWE players. This being at United Center, which is a bigger building than they normally run in Chicago, that's kind of the flag to me that says, okay, maybe they might be planning something big here. Did you make anything of this announcement, or is it just, hey, it's time for Elimination Chamber and this is what we do?
Yeah, so here's my thinking is, like, if we're looking ahead and we're trying to project the top matches at WrestleMania, I am of the belief that as of right now, I consider Sami Zayn the favorite to win the Rumble. I just think the story they've been and look, he's nowhere near the level right this second to where he probably need to be to win the Rumble, but I think that's the story they've been wanting to tell. It's a long-term deal. Yeah. He's going to be world champion. They wouldn't have been setting that in motion, and I just think, put it in Saudi Arabia. He's one of WWE's biggest stars. I think it would make a lot of sense to have him win the Rumble. And so if you do that, that means who's not winning the Rumble? That means CM Punk is not winning the Rumble again. Yeah. And for me, it's like maybe Elimination Chamber is where Punk earns his way into a match versus somebody. And I know he's the champion right now, but again, I'm thinking, is he still going to be the champion come then? Is there going to be a change? Is Breaker have the title? Or is there another way to get there? Or maybe you just simply do it that way, right? Maybe it's just Punk's still the champion. He defends the Elimination Chamber, and that's the story. But I think you got a couple options there when it comes to that. But I don't know. I just think it's going to be fascinating to see kind of how the title picture turns out, because there was some shuffling after Rollins' injury.
Right.
And I think that's where I don't have a great feel of what it's going to look like. Before the Rollins injury, I was thinking I would kind of bank on you could either do Punk versus Rollins, or you could do Punk versus Cody. I was of the belief that Rollins and Roman and Punk and Cody was the best direction, but now I'm not sure. I think maybe that changes up a little bit based on Rollins' availability, which I don't know if he's going to be back. So I think there's a lot you can do with Punk on that show, whether he's still the champion or not. But I think you probably got those two options. Either he retains the title in Elimination Chamber and all of a sudden his opponent for WrestleMania, or he has somehow lost the title by then and he has to win the Elimination Chamber to get back into it to face whoever.
Yeah, it gives him options too. Like if Rollins was still around, and of course, I think he makes the product better overall. But I think it was very much going toward the road of Roman and Rollins, Cody and Punk. Like those are your matches, or your two of your big matches anyway. And now, like there's one of those spots freed up. So, does that mean Braun Breaker takes a big jump? Does that mean Gunther takes a big jump? Does that mean you don't do Punk and Cody anymore? So I think it like puts a little bit more. There's more balls in the air to juggle for WWE, but that's it could make the product more interesting. So we'll see. But it's Elimination Chamber, Chicago, end of February 28th at the United Center, which is interesting for people like me who have been watching WWE shows at Allstate Arena forever. This is odd. This feels weird.
Yes.
All right. That's the news. Blake, let's roll out this news segment, man, and then we're going to ride off into the sunset.
All right. So, I love my trivia, okay? So, I'm going to give you have three choices here. We're going to play Guess the Main Event, all right? And some of these will be easy, but I think these are kind of fun refreshers. You can take a couple minutes down memory lane, have some fun with it. So we're going to just start with WWE, okay, here for this week one. So we're only picking from WWE shows. We may expand this more as we get into it.
Guess the Main Event, right?
It's Guess the Main Event, but I'm going to give you options. So you can pick 1980s, 1990s, or 2000s, okay? We're not going to the mid-2010s because I couldn't tell you a single main event from some of those shows in the mid-2010s.
It's John Cena versus Randy Orton, and that's it. Just repeatedly over and over and over again.
So you get to pick. You can start with 80s, 90s, or 2000s, and I'll give you a main event.
I'm going to go with 2000s this week. 2000s for 500 there.
All right. So you're going to go 2000s. So let me pull up my list of 2000s here. And okay, so technically this one would qualify. All right.
Oh,
so, Zach, your main event is The Rock defending the WWF Championship against Triple H and Shane McMahon.
Oh, my God.
The date is May 6, 2000. The city, this may give it away. I can't give you the city. It'll give it away.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say, and it's not because I remember the match, but it is because of the time of year it was. I'm going to say King of the Ring.
So, had I given you the city, you would have gotten it, because this, of course, was a special pay-per-view produced in London, England.
Capital Carnage?
Insurrection.
WWF
Insurrection 2000. So,
oh my gosh.
I don't remember hardly any. I do remember the main event somewhat, but I don't remember a lot about it. Elsewhere on this show, Zach, you had an arm wrestling match where the Cat beat Terry Reynolds in 34 seconds.
Oh my God.
Kane defeated Bull Buchanan. The Road Dogg defeated Bradshaw. Too Cool defeated the Radicals of Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko. You had Rikishi and the Big Show defeat the Dudley Boys. Kurt Angle defeated Chris Benoit. The British Bulldog defeated Crash Holly for the Hardcore Championship. The Hardy Boys defeated Edge and Christian by disqualification in a match for the WWF Tag Team titles. And Eddie Guerrero with Chyna defeated Chris Jericho.
Wow.
So there you go.
So was it a triple threat match, or was it The Rock
against
Triple H and Shane?
Yeah. Okay. So I think it wound up being the triple threat match, and I'm trying to remember exactly how they set this up. But it did wind up being a triple threat, but I want to say the idea, wasn't it, that somehow they were going to screw over The Rock, but it was maybe one of those where they couldn't decide on who. Like Shane had the aspirations to want to win the title, and so it's like you do come to the heel thing or whatever. So I think that's how they played it up. I could be wrong with that because Stephanie came out with Triple H and Vince, I think, came out with Shane. So I think it was like trying to stack the deck. Now remember, this is May the 6th, 2000. So this comes right off the heels of Backlash.
Yeah. So this is right after.
Yeah.
This is right after the Austin return then, right? At Backlash.
So, yeah, I think that's kind of the thinking was, of course, Shane was the referee at Backlash. So I think they were trying to, you know, and that's, I mean, it's basically a week later. So it's kind of one of those thrown together type messes. But I was like, I didn't want to give you an easy one off the start. I wanted to really make you think. But
no, that was a good one. That was a good one. And again, when you said London, it was either the Capital Carnage event or Insurrection. Those are the two. See, the thing is, it's so funny to talk about like international events like that back in the day because they were kind of significant in that like you had big matches like that are on the show, but there was no way to watch it. You know, like I don't think like you could buy it on pay-per-view, you know, even if you wanted to. Like it was just like what's that?
I think you had to get the VHS after the fact.
Yeah,
like
I think you had to you either had to buy the VHS or like hope that, you know, Blockbuster had it. And so like I remember those. I can visualize those sitting on the shelf at Blockbuster being like, I've watched all the shows, but I didn't see this. Like this is cool. I'll take it. Except I certainly don't remember that main event. Wow.
No. I rented that one on VHS, I'm pretty sure. And so I was like, I don't know why. That one just was one of the few I had on my short list here for the 2000s. Barely into the 2000s, but there you go. So I think this is a fun trip down memory lane. We'll have some fun with this.
I love it. I love it. Guess the main event. Be here next week for the next one. Guys, thanks so much for joining the show. That has been Pro Wrestling Weekly right here on the Takedown on SI. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please hit subscribe. We'll have a full gear preview next week, along with some other, you know, upcoming interviews with some of the biggest AEW talent, the biggest WWE talent, TNA, MLW, you know, you name it, they're on the channel, and they're all really good. They're just really fun interviews, and I think the team at the Takedown on SI can really get the talent to open up on some fun topics. So check those out right now. Again, if you're watching, like the video, it helps us grow this channel. And make sure you're heading over to the takedownonsi.com to make sure that you're getting all up to speed on your wrestling needs. We have stories up right now about MVP and him re-signing with AEW, an update on Bianca Belair and what the future holds for her coming off being injured. Obviously, we've got all the Elimination Chamber news, and a fun little story about Braun Breaker and John Cena that I think you might want to check out as well. So that's the Takedown on SI. Make it part of your day. Make it part of your pro wrestling fix. Go there. I think you'll be very happy with the coverage that we provide on an everyday basis. Also follow the SI brand, the Takedown on SI on Twitter. SI_wrestling is how you do that. SI_wrestling. Thanks to Sean. Thanks to Atmosphere. Thanks to everybody else who joined us live. We appreciate it. We'll be here next week, same time, same place. For Blake, I'm Zach. We'll see y'all soon.